Alright.
Welcome to Ultimate Support build, you buffing bastards. For this particular role I've chosen Templar multiclass. Priest on its own gives us fantastic AoE healing spells and also fantastic AoE buffs. Paladin on the other hand gives fantastic single target buffing abilities and also single target healing spell. So they work very well together and I believe this is the ultimate supporting class. This class solely focuses on healing party members and buffing them. We don't do anything to enemies, we don't crowd control them, we don't debuff them. With this thing in your party you can be sure that most of your allies will survive even the toughest situations and that they will constantly be buffed to bloody hell. Eotas Priest plus Kind Wayfarer or Shield Bearer of Saint, whatever the name is, Paladin. Kind Wayfarer gives you Flames of Devotion that heals nearby allies on hit, which is not that great with this setup. So I would actually prefer to go for Shield Bearers instead of this. Eotas on its own gives you nice supporting spells every power level. Attributes that are important the most for any kind of support class are Might and Intellect. Might and Intellect both needs to be maxed out. Might because it directly affects healing done. Intellect because it increases area of effect and also ability duration. Both very important for buffing and healing. Dexterity is your third primary stat, so try to get it as high as possible. Constitution can be left at 10, Perception is a stat that we don't need. This is the setup that is focused on healing and buffing party members. This is not focused on crowd control and debuffing enemies. That is completely different. For that you're gonna need Perception. But with this, that is solely focused on buffing and healing our party members, you don't need Perception. If you have this thing in your party, trust me, one of these other 4 slots can do the crowd control or debuffing, because this thing will keep everyone alive and buffed to bloody hell. Resolve can be put at 10 or 8 or however you want it. Doesn't really matter. Next to these automatic abilities that you get from Eotas, I would suggest these ones. Restore, Consecrated Ground, Triumph of the Crusaders, which is in my opinion best supporting spell in the game. It restores health when you kill an enemy. And it also gives you strong buff in an AoE circle, depending on how many allies you catch. Litany for the Body is a nice one to buff melee fighters in your team, because it makes them more tanky. Litany for the Spirit is something you will put on yourself at the beginning of every fight, to increase intellect and all power levels. Champion's Boon is a really nice single target buff. It gives Resolute and Tenacious. It also works best with melee combatants in your party. Barring Death's Door is a good spell that should be used until you get to power level 7 and you get Resurrection automatically. This puts Barring Death's Door on an ally that's been resurrected, and it also heals in AoE. So it really trumps Barring Death's Door on its own. Go for Minor Avatar, this will increase all your stats plus 5 and it will increase health. So that means you'll be more efficient with healing, you'll be more tanky, you'll be faster and so on. I have one more point remaining and I would use it for Shields for the Faithful, because it gives plus 20 deflection in AoE range to all our allies that we catch with it, and it lasts for a long time. Absolutely amazing spell. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, you also need Dire Blessing. Dire Blessing gives Aware buff to everyone caught in AoE. Very nice, especially when you have trouble hitting the opponent. At the beginning of the game what you need are these small spells like Blessing, Holy Power, Interdiction is also nice. Later on you're gonna substitute them for more powerful versions. Same goes for Prayer for the Body and Prayer for the Spirit. Both of them will be substituted with Litany for the Body and Litany for the Spirit. Dire Blessing will be used later on instead of normal Blessing. So I would recommend when you get to higher levels that you retrain. That way you can use these points to put more passive abilities to use. From passives what you need is weapon and shield style. It gives you +6 shield deflection and also that bonus applies to reflex. Combat focus is a must. Practice healer, rapid casting and far casting. These are the crucial ones. From the Paladin tree what you need is Lay on Hands upgraded to Greater Lay on Hands. Which upgrade you want, it's up to you, but I like this one because of the robust effect. Then go for upgraded Zealous Aura to any one of these three, up to you which one you want. Both exhortation spells are amazing, Liberating Exhortation and Reinforcing Exhortation. This thing suspends hostile effects for a long period of time with this setup for about, I don't know, 35-40 seconds, and you also get steadfast. Reinforcing Exhortation brings to ally target deflection and feat buff. Also you can upgrade it to hardy or add steadfast, up to you which one you want. From the passive abilities I would recommend highly Aegis of Loyalty. With this setup we are not doing much damage, so when one of our allies gets charmed, confused or dominated, we can remove it easily with our melee attack. As for the rest, really up to you if you want to put points into something. You're gonna have some more points to use. I would put them into some defensive ones, especially something that is resistant to intellect affliction so that you cannot be charmed, confused or dominated in any way possible. Stoic Steel could also be a nice one because you will be standing still most of the time casting. If you don't want any of these two upgrades, then just put Stoic Steel to use. From the gear, get yourself dagger and get proficiency with daggers. That proficiency with daggers gives you modal ability that increases deflection but decreases damage dealt. We are not going to do any damage, but +10 deflection will make us tougher to hit. Next to that, grab Shotty's Lantern. It gives +2 to all restoration spells and +2 to inspiration spells. Both of them we are using a lot, so it's absolutely amazing for this setup. Use light armor with the lowest recovery time possible and get yourself some things that will buff intellect, dexterity, might, priest restoration spells, area of effect ring is also nice, and so on. Now for the combat demonstration. This is part of the damned difficulty and also with beta patch installed. Two of my party members are using only auto attacks and nothing else. One of them is a Crusader tank, which means his offensive capabilities are reduced to almost nothing. Here is what you should start with. First, put Litany for the Spirit on yourself. After Litany for the Spirit, you have a couple of choices. Either go into avatar form if you see that everyone is relatively safe at the beginning of combat, or start casting defensive spells like Circle of Protection. That is a nice starting spell. Then go to avatar form and put Dire Blessing on your teammates. Also put Triumph of the Crusaders on your teammates. Now with Triumph of the Crusaders, Dire Blessing, you have Strength and Perception bonuses. Some of you will say, why haven't you used Devotions for the Faithful? Well, Triumph of the Crusaders plus Dire Blessings gives you Devotions for the Faithful effect, and it also heals on kill. Devotions for the Faithful also debuffs enemies, but we have low perception and that way we will rarely debuff our enemies. If you want, go for it, but I wouldn't suggest it with this build because we get the bonuses that we need from other spells. After these couple starting spells, you should put Consecrated Ground, where there's the highest number of your allies, so that they start receiving healing over time. If you see someone drop down fast, simply use Greater Lay on Hands, or even withdraw if there's need for it. Continue buffing your allies and removing their hostile effects. Liberating Exhortation is amazing for suspending hostile effects for a long period of time, plus it will also buff the ally. Most of these spells that you're gonna use after the starting ones will depend on how the combat is going. With this setup you can also remove Charmed, which I did in this fight multiple times. be it through liberating exhortation or through auto attack. You have both options at your disposal. That would be all, really. I don't know what else to say. It's relatively simple. Start with the spells that I've mentioned and then just start healing, buffing and removing conditions. I hope you bastards enjoyed the build. As I said, this is strictly for healing and buffing and nothing else, but what it does perfectly. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.
Let's go. Take this.